Okay, we are going to go through our presentation, our PowerPoint on Lifecyclie Nutrition. So when we talked about most of these nutritional issues, our macronutrients and micronutrients and all those things, we're normally talking about healthy adults. So when we get to the very old or the very young, all these rules might not necessarily apply. So each stage of the life cycle is going to have specific nutritional concerns. So let's start at the very beginning, right? We'll start basically this is the beginning, at pregnancy. So calorie adjustments for pregnancy are needed to support the growth of the fetus. And what we're talking about is 300 extra calories a day during the second and third trimesters, right? So a woman is pregnant for 9 months typically, and so the last 6 months of that, we're looking at 300 extra calories a day. So how much extra is that, right? That's a small sandwich. If you look at most, say, 6-inch Subway sandwiches, those are going to be in the 400 to 600 calorie ranges, depending on exactly what you put on it. So, you know, the old adage of eating for two is not necessarily true, right? If you eat more than this 300 calories or so a day extra, you're going to put on extra body fat. So 300 extra calories a day during the second and third trimester, and really only about 100 extra calories or so a day for the first trimester, right? That first trimester, that fetus is teeny, teeny, tiny and doesn't really take very much to support. Okay, so we talked about how much food this is. It's not a whole lot. You know, a piece of fruit, a piece of bread, and some other small thing would be fine. So one thing is that the mother does need about 10 extra grams of protein every day to support the growth and development of that fetus, right? Anytime you've got that growth, you require a little extra protein, whether that's you know, in childhood or as a fetus or whatever. Okay, so weight gain during pregnancy, what is normal? Usually it's about 1 pound a month during the first 3 months, right? And remember, that first 3 months, that fetus is teeny, teeny, tiny, less than the size of my thumb for most of that. And so not very much weight gain there. And then about 1 pound a week thereafter, for a total of 25 to 35 pounds for most mothers. Now, if somebody is really underweight beforehand, then they may gain a little bit more, and that may be appropriate. Or if someone is very overweight, they might not gain nearly that much, and that may also be appropriate. So we're talking about a normal, healthy mother of that is already at an appropriate weight. Okay, so what kind of special vitamin and mineral needs have we got? Well, we need folate, right? It's involved in blood cell production and growth, and deficiencies have been associated with neural tube defects. So remember, we talked about this when we talked about folate, and we talked about vitamins. Supplementation is recommended for pregnancy and at all during the childbearing years. Any woman who is childbearing age should take this because you have to start taking it before pregnancy occurs. Okay. Also, vitamin D, calcium, and iron all go up a little bit. So these are all things that you'll find in prenatal vitamins, and that's why it's important to take the prenatal vitamins. This is a question where I'm not going to ask you specifically how much of this anyone should have, but this is a list of things that a pregnant woman should have a little bit more of. And so I'm a concept guy. So you know, might say, you know, which of these vitamins does a pregnant woman require more of? You know, almost twice as much of, right? So for iron and vitamin D, right, a pregnant woman requires about twice as much vitamin D and iron as a non-pregnant woman. Okay. Remember that alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs are to be avoided during pregnancy and lactation. So over-the-counter supplements, herbs, things like that, you need to be approved by your physician or your other primary care provider. The blood levels of these things are exactly the same as the levels that's going to be in breast milk. So, and what the baby could potentially get. So if you have a blood alcohol level of, say, 0.08 and you're pregnant, well, the fetus is going to be getting that much alcohol as well. For a lactating mother, for a mother that's breastfeeding, if her blood alcohol level is 0.08, then there's also going to be 0.08 in the breast milk, and that's sort of interesting. It's also the same in your sweat. If you were to sweat, it would also be 0.08. So it's pretty similar in all of these different fluids. So my personal takeaway message from that would be, for a lactating mother, having a glass of wine or even 2 glasses of wine is probably not going to hurt your baby if you're breastfeeding, right? Because if your blood alcohol level is 0.04, then it's a teeny tiny amount that an infant is getting. But it's probably not a good idea to get drunk and breastfeed your baby. Probably not a good idea. Okay. So lactation. One of the things about milk production is it requires energy. It requires an extra 500 calories a day approximately for lactation. Now, this is going to depend on how much milk the infant is eating, right? But approximately 500 calories a day is a round number. And so when I worked for Women, Infants, and Children, I was a nutrition counselor for the WIC program. We counseled lactating mothers, and we really encouraged breastfeedings. And one of the ways that we would encourage it is to remind them that this is 500 calories a day extra that you're basically putting out, right? That you're expending to feed this baby this milk. And so lots of women, after they have their baby, would like to lose some body fat, right? You have to have a negative energy balance to do that. And this 500 calories a day that is going to the infant instead of basically being used by the mother or being stored on the mother as body fat is good. It can help lose that baby weight. So we're looking at a pound a week. If we're looking at 500 calories a day, right? There are 3,500 calories in a pound of fat, 7 days a week. That's 1 pound per week that a mother could lose just through feeding the baby. Also, adequate fluid intake needs to be emphasized because the mother is also losing fluid, right? Alcohol and caffeine are discouraged because they can be passed through the milk. Again, small amounts, most likely okay, but definitely in moderation. Okay. So breastfeeding is really the preferred method of nutrition for infants. It's the best 99 times out of 100. There are circumstances that might not apply, but usually that's the best thing. So the energy needs for I was going to say your book has some information about colostrum, which is the first milk that comes out when a mother has a baby. It's very high in protein, not as high in fat. Later on, it's higher in fat. Read up on that portion in your book, okay? So your energy needs for an infant start at around 1,000 calories a day at age 1, right? And they generally increase at approximately 100 calories a year to about 2,000 calories at age 10. Obviously, this depends on a child's size and activity level. So these are roundabout numbers. Okay, so don't be shocked with children if their eating patterns are sporadic, and they usually frequently follow periods of growth. So when I worked at WIC, it was all kids under the age of 5, and we would see them every few months, and you take height and weight measurements on them. And it's not unusual for these kids to sort of grow out. They'd grow out sideways and get maybe a little chubby, and then next time you see them, they're tall and skinny, because they would sort of grow out and then up and then out and grow up. And that's not unusual at all. And their eating habits also frequently do the same thing. Okay, so keep in mind that the RDAs for children can be different than for adults. You need more iron, more calcium, some other things. So the section in your book on Lifecyclie Nutrition has some more information on the daily reference intakes for that. Right. Adolescent nutrition. Okay, so females usually have that growth spurt around 10 or 11 years. Males around 12 or 13 years old. So this is one of those strange ages, where sometimes the girls are a little bit bigger than the boys, or they're about the same size. They're about the same size until this age. And then, around 10 or 11, sometimes some of the girls are bigger than the boys. It's not unusual. So but for the young girls, fat becomes a larger percent of their body weight. They start to store more fat around their, they start to store a little more fat around their reproductive organs, right? They frequently start to get their breasts. So that's where they get the fat becomes a larger percent of their body weight, and about a 35-pound or so weight increase during adolescence. Obviously, this can vary very, very widely. Okay, so males, they get that growth spurt a couple of years later. They tend to get more lean muscle mass increase, and their weight increases usually by about 45 pounds or so. Again, these are very average sort of numbers, right? So weight problems frequently can begin during this period. this is a time when we have to be especially conscious of not causing weight problems, also of not causing eating disorders and things like that for kids that maybe do weigh a little bit extra. I'm going to go ahead and end right here and do the rest on a new slide, on a new video.